Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's call to order the committee, the whole meeting, December 10th. I'm sorry, CRA. I jumped ahead, wrong page. Madam Clerk, call roll, please.
Board Member Maldonado. Board Member Fairclough. Board Member Burgess.
Here.
Vice Mayor Shelley.
Here.
Chairman Porter.
Here.
Mayor or Mr. Chairman, I know that members Waldman is on her way and Fairclough are on their way.
Okay, well, they can catch up with us. Any deletions or referrals? None? Item 3 is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Car 1014, Homestead Main Street.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Could I make a suggestion that we move down to the other ones, and then with the two discussion ones, maybe we come back to them when there's more people here for their input?
Good idea, good idea. Which item did you want to go to?
I would say we start down maybe at 3. And my glasses, I'll tell you.
Which power do you need?
3, tab 3.
Okay, we'll go to tab 3 then. Okay, tab 3 is car 974, enhancement grant.
A resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of commercial improvement grants to Chrome Barbershop as recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreement, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion? Second. Properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any reports from staff?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of commercial and hand grant funds to the following grant applicant: Ernest Perdomo, Chrome Barbershop, located at 511 North Chrome Avenue, Homestead, Florida. Mr. Perdomo is requesting $10,000 of the $25,000 he is eligible to receive for facade and structural improvements. On October 29, 2013, the Southwest Advisory Committee recommended the approval of the commercial grant submitted by Mr. Ernesto Perdomo of Chrome Barbershop. On October 11, 2011, the CRA Board approved Resolution CRA 2011-10-13 adopting the guidelines for the CRA Commercial Enhancement Grant Program.
Any discussions from the board?
Questions? To the CRA director, to the manager, he is allowed to come back for the remainder if he wants to, correct? And if there is more work to be done?
Yes. We would have him basically resubmit a scope of work, and we would actually go back through the process and then bring it to you for approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else from the board? This is a public hearing. If there's any comments from the public or questions from the public. Okay, I see none, hearing none. We'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Board Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Board Member Burgess.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Car 977.
The resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of commercial improvement grant funds to Lucky Shot Billiards, Inc., as recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreement, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Any staff report?
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of commercial and enhancement grant funds to the following grant applicant: Lucky Shot Billiards, Inc., Mike Brady, 176 Southwest 4th Street, Homestead, Florida. Applicant is recommended to receive $25,000 in facade improvements. A lot of the background information is pretty much boilerplate. Would you like me to read through it all, or?
Any of the board members want to hear it again?
No, thank you.
Okay, no thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. This is a public hearing, so if there's any comment from the public, questions from the public, seeing none. Did you want to talk on this? No, okay. Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Board Member Burgess.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Carr. 980.
Resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of residential multifamily grant funds recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreement, providing for implementation and effective date.
Is there a report from staff?
I think we're on car 979.
9.
Yes,
Nine.
979.
What did I say? 980?
Staff recommends the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of multifamily grant matching funds to the following grant applicant: Margarita DiCerna, 520 Southwest Chrome Avenue, Homestead, Florida. Ms. DiCerna is eligible to receive up to $15,000 in home repairs and facade improvements. On October 29, 2013, the SWAC committee recommended the approval of Margarita DiCerna receive the matching grant. And on May 7, 2013, the CRA Board approved resolution CRA 2013-05-10, creating the multifamily grant program.
Is there a motion? Move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any questions from the board? Again, this is a public hearing. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Burgess.
Yes.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes, motion carried.
Motion carries.
Next item is tab 6.
Resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of residential multifamily grant funds recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreement, providing for implementation and effective date.
Report from staff.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of multifamily grant matching funds to the following applicant: Maria Rivera, for properties located at 633-635, 641-643, 647-649, 703-705, 713-715 Northwest 9th Avenue, Homestead, Florida. Ms. Rivera is eligible to receive up to $25,000 in home repairs and facade improvements.
Ms. Waldman, we're on tab 6. If you got it, okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Is there a second? Any questions from the board? Public hearing again. Any comments or questions from the public? I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Board Member Burgess. Board Member Waldman. Chairman Porter.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Next is tab 7.
Resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of residential improvement grant funds recommended by Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreements, providing for implementation and effective.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, CRA staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of CRA grant funds to the following applicant under the Residential Facade Grant Program. Bertha Bellotti, 23 Northwest 4th Avenue, Homestead, Florida, has also applied for a residential facade grant from the CRA. Please see car 1006. The applicant is eligible to receive up to $10,000 in residential facade improvements.
Is there a motion? Second? Any questions from the board members? Again, public hearing. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Waldman.
Yes.
Board Member Burgess.
Yes.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Tab 8,
Resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of emergency residential improvement grant funds recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreements, providing for implementation and effective date.
any report from staff?
Mr. Chairman, CRA staff recommends the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the emergency home repair of Miss Jean Taylor, 405 Northwest 2nd Street, Homestead, Florida. Ms. Taylor sought out the CRA for assistance after receiving a nuisance letter from the county in reference to her connection to the City of Homestead sewer line. On August 29, 2013, the SWAC approved Ms. Taylor's application to be recommended to the CRA Board. On May 17, 2010, the CRA Board approved Resolution CRA 2010-05-05, creating the Emergency Home Repair Grant Program.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Questions? Questions from the board? Again, a public hearing. I'll open up the public hearing at this time. Any questions or comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Woolman.
Yes.
Board Member Burgess.
Yes.
Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Tab 9.
Resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the allocation of residential improvement grant funds recommended by the Southwest Advisory Committee, approving grant agreements, providing for implementation and effective date.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, CRA staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the disbursement of CRA grant funds to the following applicant under the Residential Landscaping Grant Program. Bertha Bellotti of 23 Northwest 4th Avenue, Homestead, Florida, has also applied for a residential facade grant from the CRA, CCAR 999. This applicant is eligible to receive up to $5,000 in landscaping improvements.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Properly moved and seconded. Questions from the board? I'll open up the public hearing at this time. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Burgess. Board Member Maldonado.
Yes.
Board Member Woolman.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley.
Yes.
Chairman Porter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Tab 10.
Resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting the proposal of Web Management Services, Inc. for the completion of research and production of a report providing recommendations regarding the advancement of the Seminole Theater operations, waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Section 2411.1A2 of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Let's have a report from staff, please.
CRA staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal from Web Management Services for consulting services to develop a business plan and market study for the Seminole Theater. Total proposed amount for the complete plan is $42,000. Web Management Services submitted a proposal for consulting services to develop a business plan and market study for the Seminole Theater. The scope of work outlined in the proposal includes a market review, potential uses and users analysis, competitive analysis, programming strategy, governance and management analysis, facility management plan, staffing plan, models and precedents, pro forma operating budget, critical path plan, and final report. The total amount proposed for the above work is $42,000. This includes reimbursements for travel and demographic data. The funding for the study will be coming from CRA Professional Services.
Is there a motion?
Move it.
I'll second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any questions from the board? At this time, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think this is something, and I'm very excited. I think it's going to open a lot of new doors and new adventures, new opportunities for the Seminole Theater, and I just want to put that on the record that I'm excited.
Any additional comments?
Just a question, Mayor. Staff, I know that back in 2007 there was some type of report, something similar like this done. Do we have records of that filed? And if we do, will that be used as kind of any legwork that was done, or what's your position on that if you do have it?
We do have the AMS study. Part of that study are the recommendations from that study were a second study looking at the feasibility of the revenue streams, because there's some assumptions made in there. So I think, yes, they're going to look at that original study. They're going to look at the marketplace now, because we're almost 6 years, 7 years away from that. So they're going to take a look at that, take a look at the old study, see what the market looks like now, and to go a little bit farther in the revenue portion of the study.
Any other questions?
To the mayor, just a comment. I'm excited that we're moving forward with such a stalled project because I'm a proponent of the Seminole Theater. However, it's very important that we do our due diligence and make sure that we're moving forward with a project that is viable. So I'm really interested in the data that will be derived from this study, and I thank you for your efforts on moving it forward.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
Just wanted, just to point out that there was a meeting that was held between the city manager and the Seminole Theater Board to discuss this particular consultant, and they were on board. They were very happy to see this move forward, and they did endorse using this particular company going forward to do the feasibility study.
Okay. I'll open up the public hearing at this time. Anyone from the public that would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any final comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Maldonado,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Fairclough,
Yes.
Board Member Waldman,
Yes.
Board Member Burgess,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Schilling,
Yes.
Chairman Porter,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Tab 2. Tab 2, Mr. Manager, or Rick?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, CRA staff is seeking direction from the CRA Board regarding Homestead Main Street's request to receive sponsorship from the CRA for special events held in the downtown area for fiscal year 2014. They are requesting $15,000.
Okay, we have staff report. Is there, I'll entertain a motion at this time, or just for...
I'll move it.
Is there a
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion from the board? Any further discussion? Vice Mayor?
Just to confirm, this is like we've done the last couple of years, and that is that we have monies that are set aside or allocated, earmarked for Main Street to be used for events, and then during the event, or at the time of the event, they submit the receipts back to us. Is that correct?
Yes. In last year, it was the first request for $15,000. They came in with their list of events in advance. Prior years, it was event to event, and I think the board had given us direction that it would be better if we knew in advance, and it was all done in one fell swoop.
Right, and I agree. I think it worked well last year. I just want to make sure, again, there's the accountability factor, making sure that we actually see the receipts before we distribute
Yes.
the funds along the way. But it's been great so far, and I support going forward this year as well.
I just want to say that I want to say thank you to Main Street board members. I mean, the event that you put on Friday night was absolutely, I was shocked. In all the years I've been going, which was long before I was on city council, I've never seen a crowd like that. And they do magnificent things, and we're going to have to realize that if we want them to continue to do magnificent things, that their budget's going to have to be increased, you know, or their funds are going to have to be increased, because they can't do it on their own. They have no way of, you know, they offer these events free of charge, and they have no way of really generating the money that they need to pay for the incidentals, like the street closures and police and excuse me, all the things that come out of their very small budget. So I encourage our colleagues to accept this proposal tonight and vote on it, and then to think about next year, because we all want to see great things in Homestead, and nothing is sweeter than to see our citizens come out and just gather together. It just reminded me of an old Christmas movie with everybody there with their children and watching the movie. I want to say thank you, Yvonne Knowles and your board. You did a great job.
Yes, through the mayor. I have a comment and a question. Yvonne, would you like to come up? I have a question for you. I would just like to say that I think you do a wonderful job of bringing activity down to downtown, and I always enjoy attending all of the events that the Homestead Main Street spearheads. I was asked a question, and I think it was a valid question that warranted a response, but I didn't have a response. I would like to ask you, when you have the food trucks downtown, I'm sure you probably have gotten this question also, some of the businesses feel some type of way about that because they feel as if the food trucks are not vested in the city, but they come into the city and profit from it economically, and it potentially hurts their sales in their restaurants. So how would you respond to that?
Green.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Councilman. We have addressed that question. We have heard it. We've talked to the restaurant owners. And our event before the Christmas was a burger brawl. That was the weekend of NASCAR. So we specifically said this is going to be only for our local restaurants. And it was very successful. We had 5 restaurants grilling on Chrome Avenue. That was fantastic. So we decided we'd do it again for the Christmas event. We could only get 2 to show up. And I was panicking with 2 restaurants cooking for 1,200 people. I was, there were a lot of people who were looking for food trucks that night because they were planning on having dinner with their family, and we didn't have quite enough to cover the numbers of people. So somewhere in between there's got to be a mix between food trucks and always making it available to our local restaurants to participate if they're available. But as it turned out, this time around, they just weren't interested in being there in December. They were pretty much tired from the November event and had been committed to other obligations. So I certainly agree. We want to work with our local restaurants. We only have about 5 that are downtown right now. But to get people to come back to our events, we have to always give them something new and exciting. And the food trucks do provide some of that. So it's a delicate balance. We certainly want to make sure that our restaurants are thought of first.
And thank you for that type of response, because I feel as if there should be a happy medium. We don't want to be exclusive in that we don't invite these different vendors into our community, because we want to showcase Homestead. But I think there has to be a delicate balance between the food trucks and the local businesses. So I thank you for your public response.
Any
Thank
further
you.
discussion? So the motion is to approve the $15,000 for Main Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We need to go to tab 11, correct?
Yes. Resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving an amendment to option agreement for purchase of real property between the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead and Florida Education Center of Homestead, LLC, providing for implementation, providing for an effective date.
Is there a report from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends that the CRA Board deny the resolution approving a 6-month extension of Florida Education Center of Homestead, LLC's option to purchase agreement. There is a staff memo. On December 14th, 2011, the CRA Board passed Resolution CRA 2011-12-15, approving a 2-year option to purchase agreement between the Homestead CRA and Florida Education Center of Homestead, LLC, doing business as Dade Medical College, for the purchase of 19 CRA lots. The agreement expires on January 9th, 2014. On October 2nd, 2013, CRA staff received a letter from FECH requesting a 6-month extension of the agreement. Staff recommends denial of the extension due to new information which indicates that the integrity of the process leading to the approval of the agreement was compromised. On June 8, 2013, former CRA Board Chairman Stephen Bateman disclosed that his wife had a financial relationship with Dade Medical College and that he did not vote on the agreement because, quote, his wife had other real estate dealings with Perez, end quote. Also on June 8, 2013, former Dade Medical College President and CEO Ernesto Perez disclosed that former CRA Board Chairman Steve Bateman's wife, quote, works as a consultant for us, end quote, identifying properties for Dade Medical to buy. Among them, the former McCrory 5 and Dime store, which was acquired by Dade Medical in April of 2011. The acquisition occurred while the CRA purchase proposal was under staff review. At the time that Dade Medical College was attempting to purchase the 19 lots from the CRA back in 2011, neither Bateman nor Perez ever publicly disclosed that the then CRA Board Chairman had a conflict and was prohibited from involvement in the negotiation process. Although the CRA Board Chairman repeatedly walked off the dais when the matter was up for consideration by the CRA Board, During the same time frame, he repeatedly attempted to insert himself in the negotiation process, and in fact, it was Bateman himself who called the November 16, 2011 special meeting of the CRA board to discuss the sale of the lots, even though staff had not completed the negotiations. Based on these known facts, staff recommends that the CRA board deny the attached resolution approving a 6-month extension of Florida Education Center of Homestead LLC's option to purchase agreement.
Is there a motion, and what would the motion be? Or would you rather go into the public hearing part of it? Want to hear from the applicant first?
I make the, listen to our staff and we deny the process.
Okay, motion to deny. Second. And second, okay. The motion is to deny the applicant's request for an extension at this point. Any questions from the board, comments from the board at this point? None?
Well, just waiting on this a little bit. I think it was a very ambitious plan, and collectively, I feel as a council, we're really excited about what Dade Medical College was bringing to sleepy downtown, and your efforts to attempt to reawaken it. But as things begin to transpire and the outcry from the community, I think it's time for us to turn the page. Time to turn the page on this project and kind of start a new chapter and write a new story for the history of City of Homestead and in downtown. So I can't support this project moving forward. Initially I did because I had high hopes of what Dade Medical College was bringing to Homestead, but at this point I cannot support it any further, and I am going to accept the proposal and the recommendations from staff to not extend a 6-month contract.
Any further comments before I open the public hearing? Okay, at this time I'll open up the public hearing that anyone would like to speak with regards to this item. You're welcome to step to the microphone and speak at this point.
Kevin Sullivan, 1860 Southeast 6th Court. I sit here tonight and I want to thank you for the recommendation from the CIR board. I feel it's time to put this behind us, sit down and have honest negotiations. I sat in this room less than 1 month ago, and the main person involved with this gave assurances to the board up there that he was going to hold the money from Art South so that those artists could find a place to teach our kids art. Well, I've just learned through a newspaper article that he's already cashed the checks. So I think it's very hard to sit down and deal honestly with people of this character. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time? Oh, Mayor, yes, little one. Please, sir. Yes, sir. Need to turn that mic on, please.
My name is George Alvarez. I'm representing Dade Medical College. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and council members and member of the administration for giving me an opportunity to speak for a few minutes to clarify a few points, and then we have one other team member who will be speaking to you specifically about the motion just made. And Councilwoman Faircloth, I agree that at the beginning when this was presented, it was an exciting project, and in our estimation it continues to be. And what we're very concerned and dismayed about, just like this gentleman just stepped up and said, that the information that he has received was not only here in person, but then from the Miami Herald. And our concern is that some of this decision, some of the quote-unquote facts that have come out have been from the Miami Herald. Now, again, for us to be able to have a discussion and being fair and being balanced with this issue, to have the Miami Herald of all institutions to be the only one getting out the facts is dismaying to us. Our new CEO spent 2 hours with the quote-unquote reporter from the Herald before the first story broke. Not one comment from the CEO made into that paper. So just to clarify, as far as the checks were concerned, what a lot of people don't know is that there were almost $115,000 in past rent that was forgiven with Art South.
Excuse me,
Yes,
sir,
Councilwoman.
I'm having a hard time just a little away from the microphone and speak.
I don't know if you were maybe just too close, but try just back.
Will do. Is this a little better?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that you bringing that up.
Can
I just wanted to
can
hear what
everyone
you were
else
saying.
hear? Can everyone else hear? Because, okay. Yes, sir.
I won't repeat the whole statement, but just the concern is the information that the esteemed council is receiving and the community, members of the community, comes from just one source. And that's a source, again, when our new CEO sat with a so-called reporter for over 2 hours, not one word of that interview came out in the paper. So it's extremely one-sided, misguided, and up to a certain point showed malfeasance on their part, and I won't get into that part. But what I will say is that there was close to $115,000 in back rent that was forgiven with our child. Forgiven. Apart from the $18,000 that was cashed. There was an additional $20,000 to $30,000 in moving expenses that we pledged to assist them in moving. And that pledge is still there. So those are, again, it's partial half-truths, it's innuendos that's coming out, and I think out of respect to the commission and to the community, it's important for the whole story to come out. Mr. Perez resigned as CEO. He's taking care of legal issues out of an abundance of caution and out of the respect that he has for the communities that we serve and out of the respect he has for the college. The college has 2,000 students and 500 families that depend on the college and on the progress of the college going forward. And for us, we're people, we're families also, and we're affected, again, when we're not given the opportunity to put the full story out. In Homestead alone, there's 60 employees that dine, walk, and shop in Chrome. Again, like the councilwoman said, Sleepy Chrome, which is now vibrant, with 300 students and 60 employees. That has changed the complexion of the entire street. And Mr. Perez had a vision to bring in what he's brought in, already actively there, including Lucky's. Now, let me tell you about Lucky's. He spent $200,000 in Lucky's without the cost of the actual location itself. And Lucky's for a long time had 40 employees and was doing very, very well. Because of the negative publicity and other issues surrounding all this innuendo, we've seen it go down, 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 up to the point that it was costing $22,000 a month in net losses. And it came to a point where he had to step back and say, well, how can we do this better? So Lucky is coming back, and I'm on the record of saying it's coming back bigger and stronger than what it was before, in a retooled fashion so that the community has a place that they enjoyed for the time that we were there. The other point I wanted to mention, as far as our support here, I don't have to tell the council the support. The Military Action Committee, the many, many, many organizations, and many of you have come to us. Mr. Perez is a heart of gold. And when someone steps up here that doesn't know him and talks about his character, that's offensive to me. Because I've been working with him for 4 years. And if it wasn't for the opportunity he gave my family and I in one of the worst economic times in this country, I don't know where I would be. Thanks to his largesse that he's given me an opportunity and 500 other families an opportunity to be successful in what we do. And he has turned no one down and will continue to turn no one down as he goes forward in the many communities that we serve. Every community that he served, he has stepped up. If at any time, those of you who like baseball, the bases are loaded, and you need a home run hitter, I want him to step up to the plate. And yes, please remember statistically, home run hitters also strike out every now and then. So he's not a perfect person. He has flaws like we all do. But before we, again, go ahead and accept whatever the quote-unquote of all places the Herald says, please do an investigation, talking to everyone, evolve. So you see it's a lot more balanced, there's a lot to the story you don't know. So again, I thank you for the opportunity, and we have one other team member who's going to talk about the action.
Before you go, can I ask a question?
Mr. Alvarez.
My question is, how do you guys respond to the allegations that were made here tonight about the improprieties of Mr. Perez and the former mayor and his wife being involved in a real estate deal and doing that behind the scenes? What is your position then, since you said the Herald might not have given us the truth?
Our position, and again, I'll let our next team member get into this in a lot more detail. When that all came about, Mr. Perez has always been someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, wants to help people out, and Mayor Bateman at the time became a big proponent of this whole vision that he had. Now, we believed in Mr. Bateman's actions in recursing himself and not being involved in the vote, and that was sufficient. As far as the wife being involved in the real estate transaction, that's something that we did above board. because again, she has to make a living, and him stepping away and not taking the vote is something that we thought was sufficient. Now, afterwards, obviously, the Idaho issue became more complicated with the mayor, and there's other things involved that I'm not qualified to talk about. But in our case, again, and I'll speak to Mr. Perez, who's not here, but it was a good faith effort, to help someone who was seeking and is an expert in an area, we were told, to help us continue to seek properties so we can continue with the vision we had here in Homestead. So there was no, again, on our end, especially on Mr. Perez's end, there was no hidden agenda. He wasn't trying to...
But should it not have been brought to our attention by him that he was into dealing like this?
Out of respect for the mayor at the time, he thought that was something that he had broached, and again, by not being part of the vote, in hindsight, he should have been more transparent. He himself would admit, again, that there were errors made along the way, and transparency is something that's very, big for him, and in hindsight, yes, that's something that should have been brought in front of the commission.
Another thing.
The council.
When he started this plan of his buildings downtown, he talked of bringing the Southernmost University to Homestead, and that it was going to be headquartered here, when in fact it's been headquartered in Coral Gables now. So how do you guys, how did that come about? Why did Homestead not get the headquarters like it was sold to us?
Well, let me clarify that. That's exactly what's going to happen. If this continues and this project continues forward, this is where the headquarters is supposed to be. All that we have in Coral Gables is a campus. And the reason we opened the campus in Coral Gables is it was taking so long for this process to take out here. This is a little bit of a historic note. The University of Southernmost Florida was founded in Jacksonville in 1979. It was called Southern Career College. We acquired the college and had a name change approved by the Department of Education to University of Southernmost Florida, precisely with the idea of having a base in Homestead. And that's precisely his long-term vision, and that's why, he's been making some of the investments he's been making it. He envisions here having, students being able to sleep here in dorms. He envisions faculty being, buying housing in the area. The university continues to be a big, big part of our process here in Homestead, and it will be headquartered.
Thank you. I'll hold the rest for the Vice Mayor.
Just to clarify something I heard you say. So you're saying, you're representing up there right now that you guys are still willing to provide $30,000 for Art South toward their movement? Is that correct?
Mr. Perez has said that he will provide between $20 and $30,000, depending on how much it will cost to move.
Okay, so
now I will say that as a human being, which he is, he was very hurt after forgiving $115,000 in back rent, and thinking that he was working with the community and with them specifically. He was very hurt with some of the comments. He was very hurt with them. He considered publicly being backstabbed by them. And, the issue with the $18,000 check is something that, again, he felt that he was getting no cooperation from certain leadership of that community, of that board, and he felt that he was left alone throughout this whole process. But yes, he is, if this could continue to go forward, I want to acknowledge and make sure everybody understands that there was, again, a significant amount of back rent that was forgiven, and that he will continue to work with him going forward.
Well, I just want, again, I'm being very clear here, because we have an organization that's struggling to relocate, and so if you're representing now that the monies that were cashed will be replaced by providing up to $30,000 for their relocation, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing that correctly, and that you don't say it today, and then tomorrow, they forget about it. So I'm just, you represented it, I'm just clarifying.
Yes, and again, I don't know if it's the 18 for the 18 or whatever it ends up being, but he's willing, or our representatives are willing of speaking to the leadership in our chair and talk about whatever the moving costs will be, and will assist in whatever those costs involve.
Okay, that's all for now. I'll wait till the rest of the presentation.
Ms. Waldman.
How long have you owned Art South? Has Mr. Perez owned Art South?
The closing of Art South was recent. I think the closing was just a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
And how much rent was Mr. Perez charging Art South?
I'm not, Councilwoman, I'm not privy to that.
So what you're telling me is that the rent that you're quoting was from the previous owner.
I am not familiar with those facts, and
So it could
apologize.
be $115,000.
But that's what he commented, and I know that he was very, very much involved in that process, and I know he's very good with figures, very good with numbers. And if he came up with that number, it was for a reason. I'll be more than happy to get you the details of that
As
going
somebody
forward.
who's been in the real estate field for over 30 years, I can tell you that when you purchase a property, unless that your lease contract is assignable, to our city attorney here. You don't inherit back rent when you purchase a building. But that's a false statement.
Well, again, I would have to go back and find out where the statement came from and back it up and explain it to you, and I'd be more happy to do that in writing.
But that bothers me because you're putting that, and with all respect, I understand, but you're putting that on the record as one of the reasons that, and you keep saying Mr. Perez was so upset, but when he bought that building, he knew. I mean, I was the liaison to Art South several years ago, back in 2007, 2009, and even then, they struggled with their rent to Mr. Levine. I mean, they always struggled with their rent. That was something that we knew, but when Mr. Perez bought this building, he said that he was going to do, well, actually, I don't know if there's anybody from Art South here or not, but is there anybody here from Art South? But if I recall, I mean, he was going to work with them to stay there. They had no plans at that time to make it a different. This was all news to us, or news to me. But if I can just finish, that's very important, because when you stand before us, you give us figures, and I know, Mr. Alvarez, you're just saying what you've been told, you know, but that's important because those are figures that are going out on the airwaves that say, wow, you know, $150,000 or $18,000 that he forgave. He had no right to forgive it. It wasn't unless he bought that lease. He had no right to forgive that. I'm not an attorney, but I just know right from wrong.
If I could address that point, please. My name is Mario Garcia Serra. I'm an attorney of the law firm of Greenbrook Traurig with offices at 333 Southeast 2nd Avenue, representing Florida Education Center of Homestead, which is the party that's the entity which is a party to the option agreement with the city. On the specific point of the $115,000 that was owed by Art South, my understanding is that that is a liability arising from what's called pass-through tax. In other words, pass-through tax. In other words, there was rent being paid by a sublessee to Art South, the Montessori School in particular. Tax had to be paid on those lease payments that were made. Those payments weren't made, and then there was that debt was essentially encumbering the property, which is what the $115,000 in question that Mr. Perez is taking care of and has not asked for compensation for it from Art South.
So are you prepared to?
No, I don't really know any of the details of the real estate transaction, but I think, I mean, I'd be glad to look into it for you, but I'm not privy to any of the details of that real estate transaction.
I have a hard time. I mean, I know you're searching to give us an answer, but did I hear you say tax? Did I hear you say a tax?
Correct.
A tax on a nonprofit.
Correct.
I'll hold my question.
Did you say you had a presentation?
I do have a few more comments. I won't be too long.
Go right ahead, sir.
I think what we have to do also is sort of have a discussion of this in the context of what's coming before you right now, which is this proposal for the extension of the option agreement. We're not deciding today whether this deal happens or not. There's an agreement in place already, and each of the parties is obligated to fulfill their obligations under that agreement right now. The only question is, do we exercise the option in January when the current due date, or do we exercise it 6 months later, or whatever amount of time additional that the board might deem appropriate to grant us? The fact of the matter is, there are certain conditions precedent. In order for us to exercise that option, we feel that we could satisfy them if we had to by the current January deadline. Would it be with a site plan that we're happy with and a site plan that we think that the city would be welcoming of? No. We think we could come up with a better site plan and a better project with the additional amount of time that's granted. But keep in mind here that we're committed to exercising that option agreement, whether the date comes in January or whether it comes later. The only question is, do we have a site plan which is connected to sewer or served by septic? Do we have a site plan that has the front setback reduction that we think is appropriate but needs a variance approved in order for it to happen? You know, I've been through your downtown several times, and there's no doubt that it's still in need of revitalization. The reason for which you guys entered into this agreement is still valid today, still very valid, and this is a promising project that could complete this. What's happened, our relationship unfortunately has become very strained by issues that have happened here locally, as well as stories in the press. But I think it's very important for your decision not to be driven by some article that appeared in the Miami Herald. It's one thing if there's a law enforcement agency involved and they've investigated this and they've come down with some sort of accusation, or if a court has vetted this and has decided that something wrong has happened. That's not the case here. You know, I was very surprised to see in your staff recommendation that one of the materials that it was relying upon was an article from the Miami Herald. That's not substantial, competent evidence to rely upon to give a recommendation. I mean, that hasn't been vetted by any authorities that know the law or know what's going on. I mean, you know, it's many stories make it to the press that quite often are corrected afterwards or proven wrong subsequently. That shouldn't be what's driving the decision here. We have an agreement in place. We've lived up to our side of the agreement. We're looking for the city to do the same thing. We need more time, in our estimation, to really realize the true intent of the agreement and the sort of plan that wants to be done. But if forced to, hey, we'll close with a substandard plan in January. You know, I would emphasize the reasons are still there for going forward with this project. Nothing could be better than having a college campus in the middle of downtown, having that critical mass of people so you could have the stores and shops and bars that you want to have there. And we're ready to fulfill that vision. I ask that you not let yourselves be persuaded by stories that might appear in the press, but by what the facts are right now as we know them, and by what the needs are of the city. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to clarify, since staff's memo was referred to by the applicant. This memo was not based on Miami Herald reports. It was information obtained by us through the course of the negotiations between Dade Medical College and the CRA board, and things that we learned after the fact about various conflicts.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
what makes you so confident that in 6 months you guys will have a plan in place that you haven't been able to put in place in the last 24 months, 23 months?
What's holding us back right now from the condition proceedings that have to be satisfied are the sewer issue, basically the connection to sewer. There's a pump station that was budgeted at one time but is no longer budgeted now. And then this issue of a variance that we're requesting for a front setback reduction. The issue of the pump station could be addressed if indeed we realize that we can't get that pump station built through a septic tank system, which we've already prepared plans for and we would need to submit and process for approval. And then the issue of the front setback, we could redesign the plans right now so that the building doesn't come up to the street but is set back as required. You know, we prefer something that comes up to the street, sort of to continue the sort of new urbanist vision of having the uses up close to the street and make it more pedestrian friendly and so forth.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. William?
let me get some understanding with what the staff has recommended to not execute the extension. That does not kill the plan. The plan for Dade Medical College, from my understanding, is just because we don't give them an extension tonight doesn't mean that they're out of the ball game. I mean, they can still persist with whatever plans by that deadline. So give me some clarity on denying the extension and then them still being viable to do what they need to do.
We don't believe it's physically possible at this point for them to get their approvals in time because they ran the clock. We have, I guess, the DRC meeting of May. They had submitted plans. Was it May, Joe? They had submitted plans, and when the staff asked them were these plans what they intended to build, their answer was no, and the chairman of the board was there at the time, and he said no. And so what happened was it took them all that time from the time they got the option agreement to the DRC meeting. They submitted all their material, and then they disclosed to staff that they didn't intend to build. So this idea that this is only about a pump station is not accurate. It took them way too long, and they ran out of time. And so, Joe, do you want to clarify the date, please?
That's accurate. I believe that they still need to deal with their concurrency issues. If the plans change, we would need to take them back through planning and zoning board meeting. The next council meeting is scheduled for the third Wednesday of January. Our deadline for that would be sometime next week, I believe, next Friday, the 20th.
And they haven't resubmitted the plans,
No,
correct?
sir, we have not had any resubmittals.
And also, it is true that at the May DRC meeting, that was roughly a year and a half from the time that they were granted the option agreement.
Yes, sir.
And it is true that at that meeting, Mr. Perez, then chairman of the board, said that what they had submitted was not what he intended to build.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I think for the purposes of clarity, whatever rights they have under the current option agreement, they have. And if they feel like they can meet the 5 conditions in the option agreement in order to be able to exercise the option by the date, then they will. But the issue in front of for the council is, assuming that they need additional time, do you want to grant them additional time? If you if you accept the councilman's motion tonight, it means that you just haven't given them additional time. But whatever time they have under the existing document, if their lawyer says that they can meet it, I mean, the staff will do what they need to do, and they either can meet it or won't. So the issue is here not whether they can really meet it under the existing deadline. The issue really is whether you want to give them additional time beyond the deadline. But nothing prevents them from trying to meet the deadline they have under the existing document if you don't extend.
So then, staff is recommending not to extend the deadline because of conflict of interest. Is that the primary reason? That's what I heard you. That's what I was hearing. Because of conflicts of interest of how the project became to, then that is why you're not. That is the recommendation for not extending the deadline.
Right, and in addition to the conflict, because the definition of conflicts can be a debatable issue, the issue for us was that the entire process was tainted through the negotiation process because the then chairman of this board had a financial interest, or his wife had a financial interest. So if a member has a financial interest in some sort of business with an applicant, our expectation is that that member then has nothing to do with the staff on the issue, that there's no discussions, there's no direction, and in fact, the chairman of the board at the time was an integral part of the negotiation. Meeting after meeting, phone call after phone call, took a very proactive role in the negotiations, and at no time did either this board or members of the staff know that there was an interest that he or his wife had. And also, the concern we have is, you all deal with the policy, and that's your responsibility. The process is what we're responsible for, and we felt we had an obligation to say to you that when it comes to whether a project is good or not, that's your concern. But from our perspective, if the process is compromised or tainted in any way, it puts this organization at risk, whereby the public then loses confidence in us. So we don't feel any deal, just whether it's good or not, justifies losing the public trust. We really feel at this point, if the project is as good as that they say they are, as good as they say it is, then there's nothing that would stop them from, after their option expiring, to come back, make their case, really explain to us what they want to do, and then we can, as a board, you as a board can decide what kind of process you want to have moving forward to deal with the 19 properties. And it may be them, it may be other groups, it might be an open competitive process, but we're here to say we had an obligation to disclose to you that the process was tainted. And it's important for the public to understand too that at the time that this board voted, nobody up here on this dais knew that there was this problem. Nobody knew that their chairman was walking off the dais, and the reason he was walking off the dais was because he had his wife was, and I don't know whether to use the word brokering properties or serving as a real estate consultant. And so that's a real question, and nobody's really answered that, whether she was a real estate broker or she was negotiating properties with them, what her role was there. But in any event, all of us, I think, were owed that information, before we sat up here and discussed their project, because the public counts on us. They count on us to represent their interests, and the public counts on us to take into account that the chairman of the board has some sort of a financial interest. That member can't be having interaction with the staff and directing the staff. So that's the basis for our recommendation for denial. And we didn't even address the merits of the project, other than to say to you, I only corrected the record in terms of what they said on the issue of why or haven't they been able to fulfill their obligations. Well, because it's only because of the pump station. I can safely say that, I mean, we have substantial evidence that up until May, they didn't even know what they were building. They actually disclosed that in public, that maybe they're going to build a clinic for, healthcare clinic of some sort, when the plan showed something else. For many, many months, they failed to get back to staff because staff was requiring them to follow the code, which required a traffic study. And for many, many months, they were saying that, oh no, they don't have to abide by the traffic study because, quote, the mayor waived the traffic study. Now, of course, as you all know, the mayor doesn't have the authority to waive the traffic study. And even though their architect said he waived the study and he disclosed that to our staff, we didn't take that all that seriously because the mayor doesn't have the authority to waive it. But one thing we know is that they didn't provide the traffic study. And then when the traffic study came in, the traffic study didn't reference the problem of they didn't account for what are they going to do with all this parking. And also, if you'll recall, when they first came in with the project 2 years ago, the rendering that they showed had a building on both sides of the street, and he discussed a grand vision for what this would be. Meanwhile, what they're submitting is one building, which represents a very small percentage of the 19 lots, and meanwhile, across the street is this giant parking lot. And so there's a whole lot of issues here, and we really didn't want to get into the debate about whether this is a good project or not, because really at the end of the day, that's your job. We just felt an obligation to tell you that the process was tainted, and that the public should know that none of you had any idea about that. None of the staff had any idea about that, and we feel we should have known about that. The worst thing we could have done as staff is wait for you to approve this project and then disclose that, and that just is not what we're here for. We're here to make sure that you have all the information.
So the way out of the contract was, or so that it is not to be extended, that time will run out and they wouldn't complete what they need to complete, and then therefore the contract will become non and void. Is that what I'm hearing?
They have a certain period of time under the contract. Originally it was 24 months. My recollection, it was extended once or twice. Was it extended?
No, it's never been extended.
They had 24 months under the contract. That expires in January sometime, and once that time expires, then they have no more rights under the option agreement.
And I think it's also important to understand this option agreement in context of the negotiations. At the time that staff was directed by this board to negotiate with this entity on this agreement, months and months and months and months went by whereby this organization would not budge on any of their positions. Staff's position was that we felt that there should be safeguards for the CRA, whereby if they sell the property for discounted rates, that there be some responsibility for them to build something. And so there was a stalemate for very good amount of time where they were not willing to budge on that. We also felt at the time that we felt that they could afford to pay more for the property. And as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is holding the line and trying to get the best deal possible for the city, the board chairman at the time called the clerk directly, called a special meeting of the CRA board without notifying me and notifying the CRA director after he called the special meeting, and also short-circuiting our negotiations with this entity. So again, as I think process, that's not the way the process is supposed to work. And so I'm not saying this is not a good project. That's for you to decide. I'm just saying that from start to finish, once the light bulb goes off and you find out what actually the relationship was between the former chairman and this entity, when you look back then and you see every step of the way, there were things that just don't look right to the public and are not the way a government is supposed to involve itself with the process.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I don't mean to belabor the point.
Mr. Williams?
No, I'm done for now.
Yes, sir.
As I was saying, I don't mean to belabor the point, but my client has significant interest involved, of course, so I feel incumbent to add a few more issues. You know, the issue of conflict of interest is a serious one. You know, it has to be taken seriously by everyone. And if there was a law enforcement agency or authority that was saying there was an impermissible conflict of interest here in the way it was handled, I think our position would be different. But that hasn't happened. It's the impression, perhaps, of certain members of city staff, perhaps members of the local press, that there may have been one, but that has not, as far as the law is concerned, been actually established yet. And it's important to know, too, these projects take time. You know, my firm's worked on a lot of public-private partnerships over the years. And I can't think of one, whether it's Margaritaville in Hallandale Beach or the Palace of Coral Gables in Coral Gables or Biscayne Landing or Bayside or whatever it might be, that didn't at some point require an extension of time of the agreement that was governing the development of those properties. Because development's a complicated thing to undertake. And there's many issues that come up, quite often requiring more time. And I think that leads to the important point that when you're party to an agreement, you're under an obligation, especially when it's an agreement regarding real estate. The only remedy really is specific performance if the party feels that it's being wronged by the other side, to operate in good faith and with reason. And if we need a little more time in order to get the project done as originally promised and to have it processed for approval in a sensible manner without having to call or request at least special meetings of the Planning and Zoning Board and the City Commission so that we get everything done in a rush, it's reasonable to grant us some more time. Maybe 6 months, in your opinion, is too much. Maybe 3 is appropriate. But I think we're justified in requesting some additional amount of time in order to come with a project that has been promised and the one that you're going to find acceptable.
Okay, let me just...
And I just wanted to refer to one thing that he mentioned, just because it speaks to our point on the process. The question about whether a crime was committed in terms of disclosure or not disclosure, not for us to decide. What we know to be facts are that at some point after this agreement is approved, the chairman of this board, or the former chairman of this board, said, quote, he says there that his wife had other real estate dealings with Perez. Also, we know that he has said to other people that the reason he was walking off the dais for each and every meeting, including the meeting that he called as a special meeting, which he didn't attend, that the reason there was that he had a conflict. But not one member of this board has disclosed to me that he informed any of you that he had a conflict. In fact, most of you have told me that you had no idea, and I certainly know our staff had no idea why he was walking off the dais. And so, as you think about the flaws in the process, well, we know he had some sort of an interest with the college through his wife. We also know that on numerous occasions over the course of probably 3 years, both their former CEO and other members of their staff who were required to register as lobbyists before appearing before this board and before dealing with staff or elected officials, they never registered to lobby. So when the public looks at this from start to finish, there's all kinds of problems with the process. So that's the basis of our recommendation.
Let me just say, I kind of want to echo what the attorney said. The question before this board is, do we want to extend this agreement? And I think if we focus on that, irregardless, I mean, obviously all these other issues play in, and the board members, I think, were here during this whole process. I think they're all fairly aware of how we got here. But in order to move this forward, if we could just focus on this question, which is, do we want to extend it tonight? So I'd ask us to look at that, and I would ask you, do you have anything else? Because
The last thing I would add, I would echo your point. We're not deciding here whether the former mayor acted appropriately or not, or whether he disclosed what he should have disclosed. That's up for an agency to decide whether he should be charged for that, and a court to decide whether he's guilty of it or not. What we're discussing here tonight, should we be given a few more months to be able to fulfill the intent of the agreement that both parties have entered into and are obligated in good faith to try to close.
Okay. Let me just do this. Is there any other comments from the public at this particular time? Ms. Campbell?
Good evening.
It doesn't bend very well. It does, just the top, yeah.
Thank you. We have the best-looking council, city manager, city attorney. And it's something we can all be proud of. I have had very good feelings about the medical aid college. I have a granddaughter that will be graduating from this college. Looked around and chose to go there. On her GI Bill of Rights, she was in the Coast Guard. But she's having a good time with what she's doing. Mr. Perez, I have known him as a neighbor downtown. He brings his family in to show them the museum. And I think that you all have just about heard what you need to decide. And it's up to you. They've been very good neighbors to me, and for our museum. And I'm sure you're going to carefully decide what you think is best for us, all of us. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. If there's no other public comments at this time, I will close the public hearing, and I would ask for any final brief comments from council. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to kind of weigh on this before I vote, you know, yes, the request for an extension of time is a reasonable request. I mean, they typically are. The problem in this case, though, is regardless if I give you 5 days or I give you 6 months or I give you 2 years, my determination and my thought process and my analysis is the same. So there's no point in extending the inevitable for me. And so for my problem is it's all about the process. It's the fact that the process when where we got to where we are today and putting this project together and getting approvals for this project, the process is tainted. And so there's no way, no matter how good the project may or may not be, there's no way to overcome that. And what you get to next is the public trust and confidence by the public and our electoral body and our voters who've just went through some traumatic times here in the city of Homestead. I mean, we've been dealing with some pretty big issues. And to lose their confidence and lose their faith is a big deal. And we need right now to build that confidence back up, and so that our voters and our residents believe in us as a government and that we are a good government. And so my vote today is more about the process. It's more about saying, look, we need to start this thing over. I'm not taking a position on the project itself. I'm not taking a position on Ernesto Perez. I'm not, but there's too much baggage associated with this. Not only the process has been laid out in the memo before you, and all of the reports that have been in the Miami Herald and all of the other extraneous things, that at this point in time, there's no way to get over that. And so for me, the only way to move forward is to throw it out, to start over, to start fresh, and may the best project win. In that case, you know, I can make a decision, but for tonight, I'm not going to agree to an extension because my decision will be no different 6 months from now or tonight.
Okay, I'm going to just ask for roll call. I think we all have heard enough. So, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Board Member Waldman? Excuse me, just to clarify the motion, because I know it's an important vote. The vote is not to grant the extension. So a yes vote would be to not grant the extension. It's a little bit backwards, but
the motion was to
deny the
approve
extension.
staff's direction of not approving the extension. So we have to vote. If you want to deny it, vote
yes.
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 Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Waldman?
Yes.
Board Member Burgess?
Yes.
Board Member Maldonado? Board Member Williams?
No.
Board Member Fairclough?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Shelley?
Yes.
Chairman Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Are there any reports from staff? Any reports from anyone? Is there any final public comments at this time for CRA? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take about a 5-6 minute recess and set up for Cal. Thank you.